Yeah. Okay, so so we're really into deep waters last time. Don't worry, it gets deeper tonight. But try and bring it to some sort of a conclusion. We, if you remember, we talked about things that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't see. We had said that we quoted the Sfas Emes, and the Sfas Emes had said, interestingly, that that Chachamim through Chochmah are able to see things which Nevi'im can't see. Because really our question is, how was it, if you remember, we're going back to Pashas Pekudi, and how was B'Tzalel able to, if you remember, I'm sure you've looked at the video 4 times, how was he able to understand the menorah, etc., which Moshe wasn't able to understand. And we said, we looked at this Gemara in Menachos and Daf Kaf Tes Amud Aleph, and there's lots of things in actual fact that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't understand. And then we left off here. So let's just remind ourselves of another thing where we're up to, the Moshe can understand, and we'll go from there. So here's the story. So he says, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Rav, B'shosha olam Moshe l'mor motzel HaKadosh Baruch Hu sheyosheb b'kosher k'sarim la'osius. And when Moshe went up to heaven, exactly what that means is I'm not quite sure, but anyway, he's seeing heaven. I don't think it literally means he physically went up to heaven, or it could be. He sees Hashem Yisborach sheyoshev b'kosher k'sarim le'osius, and he's putting the tagging on the letters of the Sefer Torah. So as we translated last week, I suppose, what's the point of that? Rashi says, Masha kasavta she'atat tzarich lahisif oid alehem k'sarim. What's lacking that you need to put crowns on top of the letters? There is one person is going to come after many generations. Akiva ben Yosef Shemai, and he's called Akiva ben Yosef, and you know that the Kabbalistic Sfarim say that he was a Gilgal of Moshe Rabbeinu. And the parallels of the life is very, very similar. Moshe Rabbeinu, for the first 40 years, he was the Egyptian prince, and then the next 40 years he was, they say he was a shepherd, but he was apprentice Novi, really.
He was a king in Ethiopia.
Yeah, there's the Midrashim about that as well, which I don't really know what that means. And then the last 40 years he was in charge of Clan Israel. So then the first 40 years of Rabbi Akiva's life, he was the great Meretz activist, leader of Meretz, really. And then after that, he was learning to become the leader of Clan Israel, and then after that again. So it's 120 years, 3 40-year periods. There's a parallel, and there's a suggestion that that it's a Gilgal of Moshe Rabbeinu. Anyway, so he says that there's going to be somebody after many generations. Akiva ben Yosef Shemayin is called Akiva ben Yosef. I was just thinking, because there's always a dispute whether he was a ger or he was the son of a ger. But it would be strange if he was the son of a ger, he's called Akiva ben Yosef. I mean, if he was a ger, rather, because it seems more that he's the son of a ger. Anyway. He's going to work out hundreds and hundreds of halachas from every koitz, every little thorn, or every prong of the crown on top of the letters. Let me see him. So look what comes. This is interesting. Look what comes after you. We'll see Rabbi Dessa shortly translates it differently. So look, it means either look behind you, which we're going to see Rabbi Dessa actually means, takes it, which would be the literal translation. But it means look what comes after you, right? Look achrach, after your time, in other words. In other words, look forward in time. Holach the Yosef beside Shemana Shuras, he sat in 6 rows back below Hoya Yedea Ma Hayin Oimrim, and he wasn't able to understand what we're learning. He got upset. We're learning one thing, and they got to one point. Talmid said, Rabbi Menayan Lacho, where'd you get this from? He said to them, Halacha l'Moshe Sinai. This is halacha learned taught from Moshe in Har Sinai. And he was very pleased by this. And then he says, Moshe comes back and he says to Hashem, you get somebody, such a person in the world, and you're going to get the stars through me? He's much greater. Keep quiet. I know what I'm doing, I suppose, but actually it was in my intention. It's soiv ma'ashem machshav techilah, as we see in the Chodati. I had this in mind from the beginning. I'm going to find Rabban Shalom Hareini Torasei Hareini Schari. Show me his Torah. Let me see his scar. And of course he famously shows them being tortured to death. He says, Zutar, he says, Chare, and again, come out and home do. Very, very perplexing, very, very confusing piece of Gemara. Okay, let's leave that there for a second. So this idea of Moshe Rabbeinu not understanding has now spread itself out from the Kalim of the Beis Hamikdash to not being able to understand somebody like Rabbi Akiva, and also the Alshach says the Torah itself. In fact, all of the Torah. So we don't. Not really going to go into this. Is the Alshach here is on the making the Egel Azov. And of course, the Egel Azov is because they miscalculate and think that the day that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to them was part of the 40 days that he had in mind to be up. But he meant 40 complete days, and as the day he was speaking, some of it had already elapsed, and therefore he meant it to start the clock to start ticking from the next day. So the Alshach wants to ask here that this is, of course, one of the greatest crises that the Jewish people have ever faced. We face total eradication. Hashem threatens to wipe us completely out, and it's all because they made the golden calf. Aaron's tactic, of course, was to make sure, or to try and stall them so that Moshe would come back, and they wouldn't make the golden calf. But why? Well, who needs Aaron? As Hashem knows what's going to happen, and the general rule is, and the Alshach brings this Gemara in Sukkah, if I remember rightly, that the Rebbe Hashem doesn't even let the cattle of tzaddikim stray into somebody else's field and eat their grass. So therefore, why didn't he stop this happening? Easy peasy, just send it down a while early. So listen to this, it's very interesting. Let's see what the Gemara, the Medrash says in the Medrash on Chuma. So all the 40 days he was up there, he taught Moshe Torah. And he forgot. The 40 days were up. Then he stuck it in his head as a free gift. And he didn't forget it anymore. Hashem stuck it in. So before then Hashem's not sticking in. Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to understand that's called a Torah Kula. And it's just not going. And eventually Hashem sticks it in. So here's something else that Hashem Moshe is forgetting. The whole of the Torah would not go in. Now we know people, even today there are people who know the whole of the Shas Baal Peh. I think Rechaim is probably one of those. Rebbe Ron Gurevich, the Rosh of Gate, said he knows Shas Baal Peh, and he once knew Gerach Chossid, was the Rosh Kol in Glasgow where I came from, knew Shas Baal Peh. So it's a bit perplexing what exactly this means that Moshe is not able to get this. So obviously we're talking much bigger than just the Shas Baal Peh. Who doesn't? But certainly the idea is when he's going to develop this, this is not for tonight's share, but the basic answer he wants to say, and he gives lots and lots of answers, but the basic answer is because it's going to be essential that Klal Yisrael does make the mistake, that Hashem doesn't intervene, allows them to go wrong. In the same way it was the purpose behind Hashem not stopping David HaMelech doing the terrible or making the terrible mistake that he makes with Bathsheba, which surely is to this day one of the greatest Chil Hashems of all. Even the Goyim, in the non-Jewish world, know all about the terrible crime of adultery of David and Bathsheba, which was not adultery at all for all sorts of clear reasons. If you look into that, but it comes out, it's perceived as being. So why not stop this huge Chil Hashem from David HaMelech? And the answer is that if you live in a generation in which you despair and you look at the Jewish people and you think, wow, we're so miserably bad that surely Hashem's not going to be on our side and forgive us, then you should remember there was a generation that was much worse, and Hashem considered wiping them out and changed his mind so that don't despair. Right, there was a generation much worse. So if they got out of it, we could get out of it.
Didn't David ask for the test?
Yes, yeah. Yes,
so
he did.
How would Hashem then not test him?
Oh, well, yes. So Hashem did test him.
Right, but the premise of the question was, why would Hashem allow such a...
Yeah, test him, but help him to pass the test.
Hashem told him they're going to make it.
So what?
Hashem said you're not going to pass it.
Sorry?
Hashem said you're not going to pass it.
This is a huge share in its own right. We can go into that.
You want
basically,
to be counted from the others.
sorry? Yeah, he wanted to be counted from the others, and then Hashem says to him,
Well, they were tested, you weren't
"Yeah,
tested."
you were tested, so give me a test." But the question is, then why didn't Hashem help him pass the test? Did Hashem help Avram pass his test? I mean, the general rule is you do a little bit. You just open the door, and I'll push it open for you. So why didn't he help him there?
Kind of like Yehuda failed, but then passed.
Yehuda failed.
With Tamar.
Did he?
That's a Kohen.
That's so Chazal
That was
say
afterward.
so
That
Hashem
was
took away his bechira. they
That
say.
was right. So
That's also tremendously interesting shit.
right. So I figured that David was in that uncontrollable.
It's a catch-22. Rabbi Desser explains it like this. Suppose you're a teacher and you're teaching in a school, and there's a kid who is, and I certainly have come across some of them, even when I was a kid, who are absolute geniuses. We had a math teacher, I remember, and this math teacher used to be, was putting formulas on the board. We had a blackboard in those days. That's how old I am. Putting on the blackboard, and and this guy was sort of like, answering what the answer was before he finished even the equation. Just. Everybody sort of hated him, of course. So suppose you have a kid in your class, and the kid is incredibly, know-it-all, and very cocky and very gaivadik as a consequence. So what does the teacher do? In order to...
Show him up.
Sorry?
He needs to show him up.
Yeah, basically he needs to, as we say in Scotland, put his light down to a peep. Have to turn the flame down a little bit. So what he does is he asks him a question that there's no way he's going to get. Right? What happens if he gets it? Is it going to make the thing better or worse?
Probably worse.
Yes, it's going to be worse. Okay. So Hashem offers David HaMelech a test, and the test is, what's the test? He sees a girl, and he is, how would you describe this? He infatuated. Well, think of the Chofetz Chaim. He saw a girl. Think of any Balmuster. Girls don't stop being attractive, even if you're a tzaddik, right?
No, but
That's what we don't look.
He saw Mashiach coming from this union.
Lovely. And Hashem saw that the saving of Klal Yisrael was going to be through somebody called Esther. But if her midas weren't up to scratch, you could find somebody else. Yeah, he knows that. I know that. So why did he know that? Why didn't he know that? So here's the deal. The deal is just ask at this aleph base. Any tzaddik, again, even a tzaddik has to. There's this famous story in the Gemara of the Tana who sort of was climbing there's two girls who were.
Oh, yeah.
That famous story. And he was going up. Yitzhahara was overcoming him, and he was going up there, and he shouted, "Fire! There's a fire! There's a fire!" And people were rushing. I can't remember who it was. Came rushing out, and that stopped him doing the avera. Right? Okay. So there are strategies you use against your natural male taiva. So what's wrong with David HaMelech? So the answer is, suppose he passes the test. Shem sends him a test. Suppose he's passed the test. Who's going to look good?
Become one of the others.
But then Hashem's the teacher who asked the question, who said the test that the guy couldn't pass, and he passed it. So now who looks bad? So it's a catch-22, therefore he has to fail the test. And in failing the test, he's passing the test. That's a different issue. Okay, but we're not going to go there. We're going to get totally stuck. Anyway, the point I'm trying to say here is, or the Alshus making here, is that of course Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem could have stuck this into his head on the first day or on the second day. Why is it so specific about the 40th day? And if it's in the 40th day, that means that he's not going to get back in time and the Egel Zov is going to be made. So therefore, and we've explained, so that if you live in a generation, it's a chizuk for us to know that there can be a really bad generation, like or David HaMelech, for an individual. If you've done something terribly wrong, nobody that comes to this year would ever do anything incredibly wrong. I don't mention the person that's giving the share. But you'd never do anything wrong. But even if you did, Rahman al-Islam, you should know there's a way back, even for the greatest of errors, like HaShem, and everybody knows, like David HaMelech. So therefore, in not allowing Moshe, or allowing Moshe to forget or not get the Torah, there's another agenda going on there. It's not that Hashem is sort of like slipped up here. He allows Moshe Rabbeinu not to understand this. When he could do it miraculously, he could get him down there sooner. He could stop this, but he's got a reason for for allowing this to happen, because there's going to be a greater good that's going to come out of this for the Jewish people in the future. Does that make sense? So let's consider this. So therefore, is there a greater good that can come out of this? The story of not understanding Rabbi Akiva? What was the greater good we talked about last week? Or the idea of not being able to see the menorah? It was the menorah, remember the Alshach said, was the menorah in Shemayim, which of course was beyond his capability to understand. How could the finite brain of a human being comprehend the infinite of Shemayim? No. And then we said it had to go down to the world of the Malachim, which is a little bit more tangible, but not nearly enough. And then the world of the Galgalim, and then eventually into this world. But in that there was a message. His not understanding is to tell him that all these, it's the same menorah was up there, all these worlds you're connected is something Reb Chaim Volozhin speaks a lot about in Ruach Chaim and Nefesh Chaim, how, or of course in Hasidic Swarm as well, but if you're Litvish like me, that's where you're going to access this sort of thing, that we are united, or we unite all of those worlds. And when you light the menorah down here, there's a menorah in Shemayim as well. And that message was being gotten across to him as well. So there would be a reason for this. Yeah, Rabbi Dessler. No.
Well, there's a nice Hamanera.
Oh, I didn't bring the wrong name out of that. Rabbi Dessler. Sorry?
He needed to know that for the Mas Hamanera to
Yes,
locate it.
yes. To know that really that it's going to be, it's present. We are made up of all the elements of all the worlds, right? Nefesh, Neshama, Ruach, all that sort of stuff. You know all that stuff. And only we unite all the worlds. Only we are capable, by being elements of all the world, when we get it right, when we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh in the Amida, then and only then are the Malachim able to say Kadosh, 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 which is one of the reasons why they objected so strongly for us getting the Torah. Here's Rabbi Dessler. He's in Keli Kimmel. Excuse me. Page 53, I've said here. Okay. Very, very interesting start here. It's not really for our share, but I can't resist telling you that. He wants to know, how did the Avos and the Amos understand the Torah? How did they get to the level of Nevi'im as they did? Well, you could just think of the prophets. But more than that, I'll just read this little bit to you because it's interesting and it's all right. Kodem matan Torah hayasah Torah lamal v'shamayim. Before the giving of the Torah, obviously it wasn't Shemayim. But a person could only achieve the Torah by going up and refining themselves, going up and up and up and higher. When you get to the highest spiritual level, then the Torah, which is programmed into your soul, that's the famous idea that we're taught the Torah before we're born, and then when we're born, we forget the Torah. So that's the question is, what's the point if you're going to forget it? And the answer would be, it's easier to relearn something than to learn it for the first time. So the Torah is already in there. The learning of the Torah that we do, as it were, connects, and we're rejuvenating or refreshing our memory of something we already know. So, but there, the Obas, the Imahas, they themselves went through this process of working on themselves, and there reached the Torah which was within them. But over the page, in page 54, Atom now. Even Sheyorda HaTorah Lamato, but be quite clear, but now that the Torah has been given and it's come to earth, it's not possible to get a proper understanding of the Torah. Now the Torah is given, then the new rules in the ballpark. And that is that the rule is only now through the Torah. With me so far? Okay.
Only what was the Torah?
Sorry? You can only achieve the Torah through the Torah. Well, there was no Torah down here before, and therefore if you worked on yourself and you became a very spiritual person, but now the Torah is given,
I mean, it just came.
And now the Torah is given, that's the path to get to
Before my Torah, if you worked,
it was already inside you. You would get the Torah which is printed inside you. Now that the Torah is given, it's going to be through the Torah directly. Yeah, that's right. Okay, now let's go a little bit further. He says, Atara Shebekasav, this is Rabbi Dessler. Atara Shebekasav, Gilo Hoya Lekol Ha'amim. The Torah Shebekasav is available and freely available to every non-Jewish person. No reason a non-Jewish person can't read the Bible. But that's different. That's our special thing. It's hidden. It's back to the Nazi thing we were talking about before. The Nazis love delving into the Talmud, extracting, perverting the translation, and saying, the Jews, etc., etc. Perish shemakayma hu bepnimis leben shel Yisrael. Now the Torah Shebekasav, once it's given, therefore it's out in the open. But the Torah Shebal Peh, and that's still retained in the heart of the Jewish people. ויש להם חלק בו כערך פנימי הסוף. Fine. שתי בחינות שישנם בהצגת התורה שבעל פה. There are two aspects to the Torah שבעל פה. One is הראשונה, כאשר נלמדה מפי משה רבינו עצמי. The Torah that we learned directly from Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah שבעל פה, והיא כולה בגדר הלכה למשה בסיני. That's called הלכה למשה בסיני. ויש הקבוע בזיכרון על ידי הדבקות בו. And we do that, we attach ourselves to that through remembering exactly what he taught, the halachas that he taught. Ki azchira tole betinas anashis, and as much as the passion you feel in your heart towards it, the more you're going to be able to attach yourself to Moshe's teachings and Moshe's Torah Sheba'al Peh. Vashniya, now this is going to be very crucial because we're wondering about Rabbi Akiva and Moshe's inability to understand what he had been teaching. Vashniya hi derech hadroshes v'hapilpul. And the second way of reaching the Torah is droshes and pilpul. Pilpul is not just the intellectual. The Bali was sort of, there was a big fight over pilpul, and people became sort of like Abby Carson by turning Torah into just one huge intellectual exercise. But anyway, but it means here delving deeply into the Torah Sheba'al Peh itself. Shayishtamshu behem shkinasata alabobas, that our abilities, given our abilities, our limited abilities, but the more we try and work out what the Torah Sheba'al Peh means, and our mechadish, think of all the Gedolei Adar and their chidushim, v'nishkar chaber min Torah, and of course we all know the famous story of the Gemara says that after the death of Moshe Rabbeinu, Yeshua forgot thousands of halachas, and look, came Ostel ben Konas, and he worked them all out with Pilpulai, with his working deep. He rediscovered them within the Torah. Are you okay with that idea? Did I ever tell you the story about my Passover puzzle? So when my kids were young, I bought a large jigsaw puzzle. It was a cartoon of an orchestra, little cartoon figures, a big thing though, full 80-piece, 120-piece orchestra. And I started doing this with my kids, and then what happened was that it was time for them to go to bed. So off they went to bed, and I'm afraid I'm one of these people. If I start something, I cannot finish. I got it. Right, I can't stop. I got to finish it. I didn't go to sleep the whole night, splurging on this thing, and eventually, I think it was 7 o'clock in the morning. I had one piece. It was right in the middle. It was like the head of a violinist, right? Something like that went in there. So it's like that bit. Wasn't in the packet. Wasn't in the box. It was brand new. And I'm, lunatic. I'm underneath. I'm looking, but I'd opened it myself. Wasn't there. So I went back to the store I bought it in, and I just bought another one. I was determined to get this piece. Here's an interesting piece of trivia for you. They're cut differently.
No.
Do you know that? So they must have machines that stamp them out and make all the things, but they've got different ones. So I went back and it was different. And I go, oh! Of course, it's got the picture in the front. So I'm quite artistic. I know how to draw and paint and stuff like that. So I simply, in frustration, took a piece of paper, cut it to the shape, simply copied it, stuck it in some cardboard, put it in. Right? That, lahavdil, is what Osniel ben Kanas did. He saw the pieces that were missing, but you could see from the context, etc., and completed the missing pieces of the puzzle. Okay, fine. Right. So it's possible, therefore, for Puloi to get the bits that we've forgotten.
All of Shas is that way.
What do you mean?
We have a Messiah from Moshe Rabbeinu, what Allah has, and they have Kal V'Chaimer, Gzer Shabbos.
Yeah.
Isn't it all the Shlosh Sedidas that are used?
That's tricky. As the American song says, it ain't necessarily so. In other words,
but Neil can't create a Gzer Shabbos if it wasn't Allah Moshe Rabbeinu. All these things need Messiah.
Yeah. But this is, again, you're taking me in very deep waters. You're just trying to ruin this. I've got a lot to say in that subject as well. Okay, but
Giving you more material.
it seems to me I've got a lot to say in everything. Anyway, Omar Chazal, listen to Gemara. Now we're going very deep. Listen to this. So there's a Medrash who says Gemara says the funny thing. Really, the Torah was only given to Moshe and for his family, not for the rest of the Klal Yisrael. Pardon. Moshe Noeg by Taibas, I am an Osla Israel, but Moshe he was a nice fellow. And he said, I'll give it to the Jews. Oh, come on. Spread the love. Okay. Hasagas Moshe Rabbeinu b'Torah ha'isa b'shrosh. Oh, so what does it mean that it was only given to Moshe? Listen to this. Hasagas Moshe Rabbeinu b'Torah ha'isa b'shrosh. Moshe Rabbeinu, the truth is I didn't bring it down because I realized I'm probably not getting through all this either. This is all basically this is based on the morale of Prague and First is strong on this. Very, very deep stuff. However, what he says that Moshe's understanding of the Torah is b'shrosha, to the root of it. And that is to say, when he got to the highest levels, and you have to be to the highest level, in Shemayim, whatever this means, arguing with the Malachim, etc. No other human beings ever been. His level at that stage is Lokam Israel Kamosha Od. How he sees things, how he understands things is utterly and totally different to anybody else. And you would hardly be surprised by that. Does that make sense? Okay. Therefore, he says, Kafisha ben Le'el, as I've already explained, he says Rabbi Dessa before, and his understanding of the Torah is Mikoidim L'Ma'uchar. Now, what does that mean? So another Rabbi Dessa says that, before a child is conceived in its mother's womb, etc. Plenty know that bit. And then when you're in there, the Malach is teaching everything, and you're also taken and shown from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Now, when I was young and stupid, not too long ago, I'm not claiming that I'm not now, but I'm young. Anyway, basically, when it said that he was shown from one end of the world to the other end of the world, I thought what that meant was that HaShem gave him a tour. And so like took his neshama or whatever and said to Ottoman Rishon, right now, here's Scotland. I really put some effort into that bit, and then France, etc., etc. And then you go all the way around to New York, back to Scotland. You get the idea, sorry. But that doesn't make sense. Because it says, he shows them misofa oilam ad soifa. What's wrong with saying misofa oilam ad soifa? Sorry? Oh, very good. So what does it mean? Something else, go on. Oh, more than that, what's the shape of the earth? It's round, right? So a circle has got no beginning, is it? Sorry?
It's debatable.
Oh, here we go. Probably an anti-vaxxer. So the just sort of slip that in, yeah. Just anybody's watching, I'm really against you guys. Anyway, so basically, what it means is because circle has got no beginning, it's got no end. It means misofa adam or ilamat sofa adam. From one end of the world, that's the beginning of the world, to the end of the world. He sees it all as one, right? So this is something Rabbi Dess spends a lot of time on. One of his great Talmudim, Rabbi Miller of Gateshead Seminary, who was a great teacher of mine. He used to say that imagine you go to the petition, they cover one eye and you've got to see the numbers and all that stuff. Imagine, instead of showing you a chart with letters, he shows you a map of the world. And he directs your head so you see Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, London, Paris, Rome, Athens, and then Yerushalayim. Sorry? So then he takes, okay, now tell me, what did I show you as number 3? So number 3 was? This is a memory test. Chicago. Well done. See, he's an Israeli and he gets, okay. Shame on you. Right, Chicago, okay. And number 5? And that was Paris, right? Okay, fine. Etc., etc. But suppose he sits you down, or he brings in the next guy, does the same test, but he doesn't cover the eyes. Look at the map of the world. What comes first? Pardon? What comes first? There is no first. Right? There's only first if you're constricted and stuck within time. But in Shemayim there is no time. I remember when I brought out my little book I wrote a book called Little Book for Big Worries, dealing with serious illness, which you should all have. Everybody should have this book. Baruch HaShem has helped lots of people, and we will all, I hope, be helping somebody who's seriously ill at some time, is how to do it properly. Be'ena, I said, and this was a huge chizuk for lots of people, particularly people who are terminally ill, that when you close your eyes for the last time, surrounded, let's say, by your children, your grandchildren, your family, and then you pass away, and then you open your eyes again, as it were, who do you see yourself surrounded by? The same
Your
people you left
ancestors,
before. No, the same people you left a second ago.
Uh-huh.
They're already there. Time and the concept of time and the perception of time only exists when we're in this world. But we've already lived our life. Moshe Rabbeinu sees the whole thing is one complete thing. He's in Shemayim. In Shemayim there is no time. So he sees the Beis HaMikdash being destroyed, but now rebuilt. And then destroyed again, rebuilt, and now the third Beis HaMikdash. He sees the whole thing. He sees the map. You and I can only see it that way. Do you get the idea?
Linear.
Yes, linear, right. Another example he gives us is a lighthouse, the thing goes round and round, and etc. The light's there all the time, it's just limiting to what you can actually see. Right, so therefore he says, Moshe Rabbeinu, that's how he sees. When he gets the Torah, he gets the whole thing. He understands the whole thing, from beginning to end. Now I read this so you can see this. Mishorish ad prat, as he says. Therefore he says, so he sees it from beginning to end. Umishorish ela pratis, and from the shorish to the prat. From the big, he gets the big picture, and he brings it and from that he sees the little. Achu haros la'aretz, but he brings it down to the land. And that's why he brings it to us. So when it says that Torah was meant to be given to Moshe Rabbeinu and his family, what it really means is because Moshe Rabbeinu on that level is going to understand that level of the Torah, that perception of the Torah. And he brings that down. He brings the Torah down to us, but we're not going to see it the way he sees it. He brings, therefore, is bringing the big picture. Where he sees it's all lit up. He sees it's all the whole thing, and he brings it down here where it's not, where we're constrained. But what about Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva comes from down here. Rabbi Akiva doesn't see it, the big picture. He's not a Moshe Rabbeinu. He sees the prat, and he's taking the idea of the crowns on the letters. He's able to understand specifics. Moshe Rabbeinu is therefore, in the Gemara says, sits at the end, at the back of the yeshiva. He can't even sit at the beginning of this because he's not getting this, because he sees, his perception is the whole thing. He sees it from the prat to the klal, not from the klal to the prat. Together, right? He sees it from the klal to the prat, not the prat to the klal. He's in a different place. So Rabbi Akiva, it's there, it's in the Torah, but Rabbi Akiva's experience, his reality is totally different. So, listen to this. It's a true story. It's obviously from Ger, although somebody called Y.Y. Jacobson wrote it, and I think that's I got from him. Rabbi Nathan Shapiro died 1640 in Krakow, Poland. Writes that the four letters of the name Hebrew name Elul stand for stand for Aaron, Luchas, Vishviri, Luchas.
Again?
Aaron, the Oren, Luchas, and Shviri Luchas. Okay, and both sets of the Luchas were, of course, in the Oren, right? The broken ones and the broken ones. So at the end, I'm just reading what he says here. At the end, and Devorim Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Klal Yisrael exactly what he did, and he says, "I descended from the mountain, still burning with fire, but two tablets of the two Luchas were in my two hands. I immediately saw that you'd made the golden calf, and I threw it down, and I broke them before your eyes." So the question is, why did it say I brought them before your eyes? So the story here is about that after the war, a Talmud, a Ger Chosid, who had lost everything in the war and gave up being frum, but still he missed his old Rebbe, so he went to the Ger Rebbe, of course, and also had lost a ton in the Holocaust. And they sat there, sort of like crying their eyes out and talking. And this is what the Ger Rebbe said to him. Listen to this. What Moses was saying, explained the Rebbe of Ger, was that I smashed the tablets only before your eyes. The shattering of the tablets occurred only before your eyes, and from your perception and reality, though, there exists a world in which the tablets were never broken. What Moses was attempting to communicate, the Rebbe of Ger explained, is that what seems to us as pure destruction and chaos does not always capture the complete story. I smashed them before your eyes. Before your eyes there may be nothing but destruction and devastation. He's talking about the Holocaust.
You mean like a parallel universe?
Yes, like a parallel universe. That's how I understand it. Before your eyes there may be nothing but destruction. Sorry?
Or maybe a different dimension?
Yeah, parallel universe is a different dimension, I suppose. Before your eyes there may be nothing but destruction and devastation, yet what in our world speaks total disaster may in a different world be wholesome, complete. And inexplicable as it may seem, the Ger Rebbe went on to say, there is meaning in the absurdness of history, there is dignity in the volley of tears, it means to be valley. The wholesome HaShem, who transcends all human logic and imagination, can appear to us as evil and cruel and present in every human experience. Is present in every human experience. God was present in the gas chambers and the crematoriums. He was being gassed, as it were, together with 2 million holy Jewish children. And if he was present, their brutal deaths could not be the end of the story. As hard it is for you and I to believe, the Rebbe concluded, I want you to know that the decimation of our families, our communities, and our people occurred only before your eyes. There remains a world in which the Jewish people are whole. Beneath the surface of our perception, there exists a reality in which every single Jew, from Abram to our present day, is profoundly alive. There is a reality where from every Jew from Avram Avinu are still alive. That's if you're disconnected from time. And Moshe Rabbeinu is disconnected from time. Look, I don't want to in any way minimize the experience of anybody who went through the camps. But in the same way as I said to you before, that in the nechama that I gave people in that book when I wrote, the people you see when you wake up the second after you died are the people you just left behind, which of course gives a lot of comfort. People aren't scared to die when they read that. It's like Ramatzio didn't like it at all. We were having, I don't want to say an argument, not with Ramatzio, but we're having a discussion about it. But when I was able to show him in Michta Milion, that's what Rabbi Desta says, then he agreed that was what Rabbi Desta says. So I don't mind if he wants to fight Rabbi Desta and Rabbi Desta can fight Ramatzio, and I'll just back out of the same thing. But it seems to say the same sort of idea, that if you see things differently, now, therefore, what is a big enough sign to go back to my example. Somebody's about to die. They're scared stiff. They know it's their last moments. They're leaving their family behind. Imagine that person, and in the next house, by coincidence, his twin brother is dying with his family surrounded behind him, beside him. But he knows this. He knows this idea. He's read my book. He knows the idea that, guess what? As soon as he closes his eyes, his family's going to be waiting for them. Who faces a bigger Nisayan? Who is going to be more distressed by what they're going through? The one who knows that he's going to close his eyes and the family is going to open them again, and there the family are. Because there is no time, we've already lived our lives, we're already up there in heaven. Or the one who doesn't know that. Clearly the one who doesn't know that, it's a bigger test for him, then he's terrified. But the one who knows that it's easier to deal with the world when you see the whole picture. Is it an assign if you know it's got a happy ending? When Yaakov Avinu wanted to tell his sons on his deathbed that, guess what? This is when the Mashiach's going to come and we're all going to be living in Eretz Yisrael and everything's going to be absolutely fantastic. And Hashem took away his Bechir, so he couldn't do that. But suppose he could. Suppose Hashem had decided, you know what, for whatever reason I've changed the script. And Yaakov, you can tell them exactly. He's going to say, what, 2019, and just after Pesach, 2019, non-Jewish date, 2019, the Mashiach is going to come. He's got a Scottish accent, and the Mashiach is going to come, and it's the end of all the problems. Gewaldic! Well, how big a test is the Golas from now for the next 3 weeks for you?
No, the question is the past 2,000 years.
Sorry?
The problem is the past 2,000 years.
No, yeah, but again, is it a bigger test? Well, this, of course, is a Rashi and Makedas Yitzchok. When Hashem says to Avram, go to the land which I'm going to show you, and Rashi said they didn't tell him where. It's a big enough sign if you don't know when it's going to end. But even if it's 2,000 years, if you know that it's going to end, but we don't know it's going to end. Right? It was taken. Sorry?
We know it's going to end.
Well, yeah, when? Okay. Right. But it's not knowing where you're going, that's the problem. Okay. Now, so therefore, if we put this together, Rabbi Akiva, who doesn't live in Moshe's world, it's a bigger sign for him. And it's a big sign for anybody when you don't know the end. Moshe Rabbeinu knows the end. But to be able to be in this world and be able in the dark... See, Moshe Rabbeinu comes from a world of light and brings light down to earth. When we are learning the Torah Shebaal Peh, when we are being mechadish ourselves, then we're bringing light. We're in the world of darkness to bring light up. It's the opposite process. Who's doing a greater thing? So arguably, you could argue Rabbi Akiva, and that's what Moshe Rabbeinu says. What, if you get somebody like him, what do you need? If he can mechanic, he can bring Torah light in darkness, and I'm bringing it down light to darkness, well, he's a better person. I know what I'm doing. So what does it mean? As the Morale Prague says in Tiferes Yisrael, again with Shuvah before Shem, I suppose. What he's saying there is that the truth is that no way, Chas v'Shalom, that Rabbi Akiva knew more than Moshe Rabbeinu. Of course not. It's just how Moshe Rabbeinu sees things is in such a higher level that he can't. There was the famous story about somebody who went to see. There was a Hasidic Rebbe, and whenever they faced pogroms, he used to daven, and he was such a Baal Meifus, or Hashem, maybe such a tzaddik, Hashem listened to him, and everything went away. And then once he died, and there was another big pogrom threatened, so they went to his kever and they davened, and he came to one of them in a dream and said, I can't help you. When I was there, I saw it was a bad thing, but here I don't see it as a bad thing. Right? Because he sees the whole of history, and who knows, maybe it's what the guy Rebbe said here, sort of thing. Don't know. Okay. Right, that's taken us in quite a journey. However, let's turn this into real stuff. Sorry.
You're saying he regretted, in a sense, stopping the program?
No, absolutely not. No, he just he can't. I can't damn to Hashem not to because I know that ultimately this is Gam Zula
Did you regret davening on the
Not at all.
previous ones?
Oh. Rav Nachman of Breslov, famously, the famous story about Rav Nachman of Breslov, he had a chassid who didn't have a job, and he came to him to ask him should he take the job. He was given the job, should he take the job? Rav Nachman listened, said, yes, you should take the job. So he went away, but something troubled him, so he came back the next day and said, Rebbe, I know I already asked you this, but should I take the job? I've already told you, of course you should take the job. He came back a third time, he said, Rebbe, emes l'amitai, in absolute terms, should I take the job? No, I said, absolute terms? Of course you shouldn't take the job. What was Rav Nachman's advice to his chassid? To take the job or not take the job? Take the job. Oh, in absolute terms? Emes l'amitai? Who exists in the world of Emes l'amitai? Maybe Rav Nachman. But certainly not the chassid. Certainly not Rubinstein. Right? So the question is, when you were there, when you're on this planet, you've got to act. You're a human being. So you've got to... That's how you see things. You can't pretend not to be here. When you're in Shemaim, it's totally different. Moshe Rabbeinu, he's in Shemaim even when he's here. He sees it differently. So we said, the Ger Rebbe said that when it comes to the learning of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, that's seeing the light in the darkness, if you like, being Megala, the Kedusha in this world. That's greater than all the Nevi'im, he said last week in our share. So our question, we started off the share by saying in Parshas Pekudei, how is it that that Betzalel could possibly know things that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know? So when Rashi talks about this, it's in Shmoi Salamet Aleph, and Pasuk Gimel, Amale Oisa Ruach Elokim B'Chochma B'Tvuna B'Das B'Kol Malacha. So Betzalel will be filled, and Uri said, I will fill with, certainly Betzalel, I will fill him with Chochma to be able to know exactly what to do. And remember, what to do was what Moshe Rabbeinu didn't quite get. So what does it mean? But he understood from within himself, and now we've got a perception of that, from things that he had learned. There's a thing, again, of Chochem, we talked about last week, the Chochem Odef Minovi. But now we're seeing that Moshe Rabbeinu sees things differently, and Hashem will sometimes deny him insights into things to allow other things to appear, other messages. We talked about that in last week's share. Now we're seeing something about Rabbi Akiva, things that Moshe Rabbeinu would, on his level, be denied in order to show us something much more different. But we don't have Nevi'im anymore. Here is Moshe Feinstein. Now we're coming down to earth a little bit. Moshe Feinstein beginning with Vayikra El Moshe, V'yidaber Elav, B'oil Moed. No more. Rashi says, Hoya Kol Nedaber Imoy B'Sinai, because Shagia LePesach Hoyim Nafsek. So the voice spoke, but when it came to the tent of the oil, it didn't go outside. Melechura le'izet sarach nemer kol hagodol me'achal shehoya nisek v'lo hoyim shomim achrim El Moshe Levadai. So it was a big, because Rashi says there was a big voice. You might think that the voice didn't go outside the tent because Hashem spoke quietly, calmly. No. It was Kol Hashem B'Koyach, Kol Hashem Shavar HaRozim, etc. So what's the point of having such a big voice if only Moshe is going to hear it? They could have just been a whisper. If only Moshe is supposed to hear it. I want to tell you two things. One, the Kiven Shnema B'Kol Godel Nishma Ze Be'etzem B'Kol Yerushalayim B'Talmud Chacham. So again, the Kiven Shnema B'Kol Godel. It was a great voice from Hashem. Nishma Ze Be'etzem B'Kol Yerushalayim B'Talmud Chacham Margish Amiras Hashem Yisborach Al Yidei Ma'aseh V'Tarosa Ki'il Shaleh. An incredible, interesting thing. Well, let me read that to you again. He says, "B'Kol Yerushalayim, V'Talmud Chacham, is margish amir. You feel, you get an amir is Hashem Yisbarach. Al yidei ma'aseh v'tarosa ki il shomea. That the learning of the Torah itself, it's a gather of Ruach HaKodesh. It speaks to you. A Talmud Chacham will have a gather of Ruach HaKodesh as well. And Sefer Nefesh HaChaim, Chaim Volozhin, I thought this is fabulous when I found this, of course. Listen to this. It's a posuk, and we all know this. He's talking about the gather of a Yerushalayim, which interestingly the Moshe finds it also put before the Talmud Chacham. Ku'ulai beyiras Hashem, hu godel yosef imenu. It's talking about here. You should always give kavod to everybody. It's very daled in Mishnah Aleph. You should always give some. Everybody's got a place because the amount of knowledge a person gets is not an intellectual effort. It's the amount of yiras shamayim they have. Then Hashem's going to give it to you later. Okay. Ku'ulai beyiras Hashem, hu godel yosef imenu. Maybe because his yiras Hashem is greater than you. The imkain, and if he's greater than yiras Hashem, who masig al yidei zeh chochmas Torah yosef, then he'll understand the chochma of the Torah better than you. But zeh Omanav says in Tehillim, ki edosecho sicholi, ki edosecho sicholi, haTorah hi medaberes u'matzes atzmo li belimudai. The Torah speaks to me when I learn it. It literally speaks. It gives me a real concept. What's a chiddush? Wow! It just pops into your head. What's the Yiddish word for an idea?
Einfall.
An einfall. What's the fourth bracha of the Shemona Esrei? Ata choyin la'adam das. You give a person das. You give a chiddush. It's through the Torah itself. HaTorah hi medaberes u'matzes atzmo li belimudai v'hi malmedes oisi v'lo ani. And the Torah is teaching me. The Torah is speaking to me. So we said that a person can be in a higher madriga through the limit of the Torah, even a greater madriga than a Navi. We don't have any Nevi'im anymore. But a Talmud Chacham, a serious Talmud Chacham, can be inspired through Ruach HaKodesh. The Torah is speaking to us. I'm not talking about the Gons Gorah, I'm not talking about that sort of thing. But just the Torah itself inspires a person to see things which normally a Navi wouldn't even see. So how could it be that Betzalel could see things that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't see? From his learning. That's what Rashi says. From what he learned. It's inside you. It's the sheep. It's time to finish the year when the sheep comes out. To be able to understand things.
Moshe didn't learn?
Sorry?
Moshe Rabbeinu didn't learn?
Yeah. Moshe Rabbeinu. Again, that's what I was trying to tell you last week. Sorry?
It was implanted in it.
Yeah, of course it's all implanted in it. But how he sees it, every Talmud Chacham sees things differently. Remember the story last week about the fellow who was the guys who were machine gunned against the wall. Remember that? Shema Yisrael, etc. But what the Torah says, how it relates to you, it relates to you in your experience, relates to you in your madriga. And Moshe Rabbeinu's madriga, he couldn't see the understanding that Rabbi Akiva had from his being in this world where it's Nister, everything's covered. Then he would be able to see things in the Torah Moshe Rabbeinu would see, because he sees the whole thing. I think we're going to have to chazar with this video as well. I think we'll make it easier next time. So, where are we up to? So we can switch this off, in case people are watching. After Pesach, the first Wednesday after Pesach, we shall reconvene. We didn't even get a share in Pesach this year. We'll have to do it next year.